Hello, everybody. This is the last webinar for World Childless Week 2023, and I'm joined here by four panelists who are all going to be open and honest about the conversation, because tonight's webinar is, do you need a plan B? I don't think so. So it's going to be interesting to see what everybody says and gets their own perspective. And the first thing I'm going to do is actually go around and ask everybody to introduce themselves. Sorry. So Sherry, could you start the ball rolling for me, please?
Yeah, absolutely. My name is Sherry Johnson. I help childless women to navigate grief and triggers so that they can live joyful lives of purpose and meaning. I wasn't always living a life of purpose and meaning myself. I was very deep in the grief and the triggers myself about 5 years ago. I started my journey really, I met my husband very late. I had 3 miscarriages at 39 and then into my 40s in fertility, and finally gave up the journey to motherhood when I was about 45 and decided to embrace my childless life. And that started the process of healing. You can't even consider it before then. You're just so all consumed by the path to motherhood. And yeah, so now 5 years later, here I am feeling amazing and happy to contribute here.
Thank you. Becky, can we come to you next?
Yeah, certainly. Hi, I'm Becky. I'm from sunny Yorkshire in the UK, although I'm up in the Lake District at the moment, taking my dad away for a weekend. One of the plus points of being without children, we can do these wonderful things like this for your family. So I came along to this webinar a couple of years ago, just when my fertility journey ended. And I think I said to Stephanie, it's the first time I didn't feel alone. It was the first time I was with like-minded people. It really, really helped with my healing and really helped me turn a corner. So I really wanted to give something back. Since we've been on a fertility journey, went through the grieving process, and very much so embracing what I call your plan B, enjoying life, doing all the things you could do that you couldn't do if you had kids. And I hope all of us can bring some inspiration and joy to you today. And yeah, really looking forward to chatting to you.
Thank you. Carrie, you're next, please.
Yeah, thanks for having me, and thanks for being here, everybody. My name's Carrie Brauninger, and I'm in Denver, is where I live, and I'm childless, single and childless, and kind of identify as childless by circumstance. My childlessness is started out related to singleness and making the choice to not want to do that on my own. And, I think as life happens and events occur and we never know what's coming around the corner, I have since had to have a hysterectomy. So even if singleness changes, childlessness isn't going to change. So I'm here just because I love this conversation and really looking forward to be able to share my story. And then also, it's really healing to be around other people. So thanks for putting this on.
Thank you. Lana, can you speak?
Yes. Thank you. Well, I'm Lana Manikowski. I live in Chicago. And I started my path to motherhood when I was 37. So I didn't get married till I was 35. And up until then, I was very vivacious, career-driven, goal-driven. And then when I started a 7-year journey through fertility treatments and found out that I couldn't become a mom, I just felt like I really lost who I was. And that feeling of being proud of myself and all the things that I think fueled me, I felt like were really unattainable when I found out that I couldn't become a mom. So I looked around and there was really not much to glean from other people. And there weren't a lot of communities when I finished my journey. So to have found World Childless Week and found an opportunity to see other women that felt the same feelings that I felt, but I never knew that other people had those feelings of sadness, was really where my eyes opened that maybe my life would really be good again, and that I could thrive and I could feel fulfilled, even if I didn't have the children I always dreamed of. So I'm excited to continue that conversation here today and learn from all of you about your journey as well.
Thank you. And I'll go last as well. I'm Stephanie Joy Phillips. I'm the founder of World Childless Week. In my 20s, I was in a relationship, but it was abusive. And I went on the pill because I didn't want to bring children into that situation. So you could say it was childless by choice, but I'd say it was more childless by tough choices and also by circumstances. I then met my husband to be in my early 30s. We didn't try to actually conceive until my late 30s. And at the age of 39, basically a doctor laid it on a plate and said, no, it's not going to happen. So I found out then I would be childless for life. Fast forward, 2017, World Childless Week started, but it was a long time in there, grieving and joining support groups and finding that community and finding my voice, being heard, finding out I was grieving, for starters, was one of the things, actually realizing I was grieving. But it led me to World Childless Week, and that brings us to here we are today. So, plan Bs. Do we need one? Should we have one? Are they good? Are they bad? What are they? Why is it? There's quite a lot, I think, of pressure that we think, okay, that's it. If I can't be a mum, I have to have a plan B. There must be a plan B. So what is my plan B? And we almost get pressurized into thinking there has to be something. And I just think, no, there doesn't have to be. Well, there could be a plan B, C, D, E, but we don't need to put labels on it. I'm very sort of anti a lot of the labels that we have out there that put the pressure on us and put us into a hole where we feel we can't escape. So I approached all of these ladies and asked them if they'd like to be in the webinar, because of when they filled in the form to be panelists, they all said something that made me think, okay, I'm going to reverse what they've said as into a question. So I'm going to go to the sheet so I can read them properly. And my first question is actually going to go to you, Sherry. So what you actually said was, instead, we began to embrace our childless lives. I felt very inadequate, unworthy, and excluded for a long time, until I figured out a way to heal through all of it and the grief. So my question is to you is, what did you actually figure out and how did it help you?
So I figured out that I didn't actually need a plan, first of all, at all. I think I went into even as a teenager, I thought, okay, I'm going to have a husband by this date, and I'm going to then have kids, and I'm going to have my career. And then, I had this whole thing laid out. And when that all went to pieces and it didn't play out anywhere near what I thought, I really had to let go of, is there even a plan at all? And I started to just surrender to my intuition. And I took one step toward what felt good. So let me give you an example. When I spent a long career in human resources, never felt very fulfilled by it. I'm jumping to sort of career and purpose, but I don't think that's necessarily what it is. It's just an example here. I never felt very fulfilled by that career. And at one point I just said, well, what do I enjoy? What do I like? And I stopped thinking about that. I was so consumed by what's next and what's my plan. I finally just stopped to say, well, what do I really enjoy? And at the time I was completely obsessed with magazines about nutrition and fitness and health. And so I just started taking courses, and that led to becoming a nutritionist. And then that evolved into a coach. And then that evolved into coaching women who had miscarriages. And then so it wasn't a plan. I had no idea where it was going to lead, but I just took one step towards what felt good, what lights me up, what feels aligned. And I started walking towards that, taking one step towards that every day. So there was no plan B. It was just following the guidance from my soul, whatever you want to call it, my intuition, and moving towards that. And it worked out. I think it always does when you lean into that.
Yeah, just one step. Sometimes
Yeah.
that's literally it. It's just taking one step after another step and seeing
Yeah.
where you
And
go.
it can be a baby step. I mean, it can be teeny tiny, just one little thing.
Yeah, I think that's a really good way of putting it. Would anybody else like to add on to what Sherry's just said?
I like the idea that you don't necessarily have to have a plan, because I think, at least for me, I was somebody who was always very goal driven. And so I had kind of mapped my life out, and I always thought there was going to be a connective path to this life that felt really good. So I love that you pointed that out, Sherry.
Or even, when we talk about plan B, like, I don't even know what plan A is or was, so I think the concept that, kind of thinking, what's the plan B, or do we need a plan B? My thought was kind of like, well, what was my plan A actually? And why was I on the path that I was on? Was it because it's what I really wanted? Is it, whether that's career or where I'm living or what I'm doing, or is it because I was just taking one step in front of the other and just assuming all of these things would happen in my life? So I think, I relate to that, because I think for me, going through this has really kind of blown up the whole idea of, who really has a plan? I don't know.
I think you make a great point there, Carrie. I think it's more just living your life and just not letting life tick over. I think it's just grabbing it by the scruff of the neck, saying, right, I wanted kids, right, it's not happened, what now? And it's just to get yourself, just embrace what we do have, not what we don't. And it opens, as soon as you've done, you're grieving, it opens so many doors for you. Think, right, I can do this, all these things you could do that my friends with kids can't. And it's like, I can embrace life and grab hold of it. You can call it what you like, and call it a plan B, just call it living, you can call it whatever, but it's just about not letting life tick over and just waste away. We're on this planet for such a short period of time. Just grab those opportunities and do those things. So call it what you like. But I think I love Sherry's journey and what you've been on and how you discovered your new passions from what you've been through. I think that's fantastic. So I think that's all we say to everyone else, is just look at your world and see how you want to shape it. You've got that in the palm of your hand to shape it to how you want to. So go for it.
Mm-hmm. Good, thank you.
Sorry, is it okay if I jump in?
Okay.
I think, like grieving the childlessness, and even grieving like singleness, and extended singleness around that. And I think part of the grief that I experienced too was kind of feeling like it feels like I have all of these choices, not in the area that I want. And now I'm like, sometimes when you have a million choices in front of you, it's hard to choose. And sort of going through that grief as well, and that stress, was tricky for me. Because when it's like, now what? That's a really big question.
You can feel like
something I just,
yeah.
Oh,
No,
sorry, Stephanie.
Carry on.
Well, I just saw somebody comment in the chat that popped up there that plan B sort of starts with asking questions about plan A. And Carrie, you said something to this effect as well. Like, how much of plan A was actually my own anyway? Like, it was so influenced by what I thought I was supposed to do and what society wants us to do, that once I started actually asking questions about, well, where did that all come from in the first place? And what is it that I really enjoy doing? And can I let that go? Untangling all of that really led to not so much a plan B, but just a moving forward.
Yeah. No, that's really good. Thank you. I want to switch on to my second question of the night, which is for Becky. And you actually said, now reshaping life, embracing our plan B, doing things we wouldn't be able to do if we had kids, grabbing the opportunities life presents, including using our annual leave to see the world. So did you feel like you needed a plan B because you mentioned it, or is it just a term that we use in general society that you just seem to sort of grab onto and it just fitted into place at the time?
It was just a term. I mean, as we were just talking out just before, how much control did you have over plan A? You kind of just, yes, you have a guide in life, what you want, an idea, and you kind of head in that direction. I hope it all happens. But plan B was a term, and also it was a sense of positivity and a point of hope and a point of a direction for me, because everyone's got different personality types. For me, I like to know roughly what's long term, what I like to try and aim for, just to keep it, and it just gives you that refocus. And sometimes, as I said, it's quite cliche, but we spend a lot of time looking at that closed door. And by using the term plan B, it can encourage you to think, right, yeah, we've done the plan A, or that closed door, close that door, look at the open door that's opening up for us. So it was, I use the term a lot in our communicate on socials and things, but it is about just embracing life and just as I said before, grabbing all of those opportunities and then do what feels good to you and go with it.
I like that. I like the idea of, like, say, we can see a closed door so often when we're grieving, and just getting that door ajar a little bit and letting the light in so that we can find out what the positives are. And it doesn't have to be called plan B, but like you say, it's pushed us so often that we often just repeat it and say plan B when we don't actually mean that. Yeah, it's interesting. Anybody else? Yeah.
I was just going to comment about the closed door. I think a lot of us think if that door is closed and we never look in it again, that everything will go away. All those fears, the indecision, the, cluelessness about, what our life is going to become. But a lot of times that closed door is what causes us the most anxiety, because we're continuously thinking about what's behind there and not ever really facing it in the forefront. And so, that closed door thing, I visualize that too, of just all these emotions that are behind closed doors, that if we don't see them or appearingly see them, that we just think that they'll go away.
It's a really good point. We just bury them, hide them, put them in the closet door and close them. And it's the last thing we should do, because if we keep doing that, that door's eventually going to bulge and burst and it's all going to come back flooding out at us. So we've got to deal with it, like you say.
It's so true. I had someone comment on something I put on social media, and they were saying, oh, this is great, all the things you're doing, but how, I've joined Wine Society, or I've joined gym club or whatever. How many classes do I join to feel better? I'm like, you can't book club yourself better. You have to deal with that closed door first before you move on, because it'll always be hanging there, and it'll always be coming, and it'll come out and bite you on the bum if you don't deal with it. And I've learned that the hard way myself. You need to go through that horrible, raw, ugly, grieving period. That's not fun. It's not nice, but it helps so much, and it just gives you that weight off your shoulders in time. And it does take time. And those who are on here and who are struggling, please don't lose hope. It does get easier. And if you join like-minded individuals like we have here, it really makes a difference. So hang in there.
I think it's hard when you're the only one that sees the door too. My experience, the people around me are really supportive in the way that they know how to be, but this isn't something that people talk about so much, I think, particularly among women. It never occurred to me that I wouldn't have kids. I didn't know anybody that literally never crossed my mind until it was happening. So I think we have these doors, and it's difficult when you're the only one that knows they're there. And then it feels real lonely and isolating.
I suppose one of the other extra
and can stop you from wanting to look at it.
Yeah, sorry, Carrie. I'd say one of those other doors is the fact of all those other people on the other side of the door who are not hearing you, not seeing you, who are criticizing and not having any empathy for you. And like you say, you've got to deal with them, because somebody said in the chat, it came up, you can't always close the door. And like I say, you can't close the door on the world outside. You've got to open it so you can go through, or let them through, and understand there will always be perhaps some confusion, because your grief will be there, but you just learn to live with it and deal with it differently.
And I think there's also a portion of us that doesn't want the world to know how hard it is for us, because we've been conditioned to go through adversity and still show up as like a strong woman who's invincible and powerful. And we exhaust ourselves, I think, sometimes just trying to show up as though everything's okay, instead of, letting a few of those people in, maybe that are key to us or to our heart, just letting them know how bad we hurt. And I think we also fear making other people feel uncomfortable with our sadness. And, those are just, from that comment, Stephanie, those are kind of two things that came to mind that I think I struggled with a lot, of just like feeling like I had to show up unaffected by how hard my journey was for me.
I think it's what helps with going through this as well, is having in your head how you deal with certain situations. So what's your narrative? How do you, so yeah, bringing those people with you, what do you say? So what do you say to work, or what is, and you say, do you share with people how hard you feel, or how hard it's been, or do you just be that presence of chirpiness and all is fine? And my standard go-to when someone asks me, when you meet someone, oh, have you got any kids? And it's always just that, and so I'm quite an optimist and quite chirpy, and I always try and want to make people feel good and not make people awkward. So I just crack a joke, and I just go, oh no, but I've got a husband, and that's kind of the same thing. And that kind of just sorts it out. They know there's something probably gone on there, but they're not made to feel uncomfortable, and that's enough. And just having those little tools behind me help me deal with those situations. How do I deal with the situation with everyone talking about their kids and things like that? How do I get on with that? Well, probably the same if I was in a group with everyone talking about a certain breed of dog that I don't have, or something like that. You kind of learn to, as an individual, to communicate and have things in place where other people don't feel comfortable and you feel okay, and you get through those conversations. It's a lot of work, it's tiring. And you said, do you show up and have that strong presence, or do you share the vulnerabilities? It's your own choice. You do what, you do what you feel comfortable with.
And that can change from hour to hour and day to day as well. Because I used to do the joke answer all the time. Now I've got a hubby and 2 cats, they're enough for me, sort of thing. But with now, I'm like, nope. And like you say, but it still depends on who's listening, who I'm with, what answer I'll give. Yeah, very much so. That door holds a lot of things, doesn't it?
Yeah.
It covers a lot of ideas of what it lets in, what it blocks out, if we should open it or close it. Sherry, did you want to say any more on the door? I don't think you did.
I will. I mean, it's a little bit off topic, but just, you and I, Steph, talked on my podcast about how to, the awkwardness and the questions that you get. And I actually take a different approach to you, Becky, where I just put it out there, and it does depend a little bit on who I'm talking to. But I had the question recently where I was with a group of girls. I didn't know 2 of them. And the question eventually comes up, do you have kids? And I said, no. And I knew she felt awkward and she tried to move on. And I said, no, we tried actually, and it didn't happen. But I'm okay now. And it opened up this whole conversation where we could actually just, they could be honest and say, well, what should I say? And what, like, I know it feels awkward for you, or I think it feels awkward for you, and it feels awkward for me. So how do we avoid this? And it was just a really open and honest conversation that I didn't expect. And I guess what I'm trying to say is it's taking off that mask, or trying, letting ourselves be a little bit vulnerable and comfortable with that awkwardness, or sitting through that awkwardness. And that sometimes can lead to so many different connections and opportunities and conversations that you just never expected to have.
So that's opening a door to your soul, isn't it, in a way? It's another door, but another way, but like you say,
it's opening up a door.
Yeah,
for sure. And to connecting in a way that you didn't expect with a potentially a parent. For me, it was a parent. It was a childless stepmother who I didn't realize that when she was talking about her kid, she was talking about her stepdaughter. And that started a whole other conversation. So it really did open a door, to use that analogy. Yeah.
And Sherry, I also think there's maybe because we've lived this journey of childlessness, I bet you there's so many people who don't even know what IVF is, or they don't know what infertility is, because in their scope of people, they've just never seen it. So like you, I like sometimes telling people about my journey because I feel like it offers them an education too about the diversity of women out there who, you know, maybe wanted to be moms and we didn't get pregnant on our honeymoon nights, or, you know, all these things that people think are just the norm when that's all they see being heard, or that's all they hear. And I think it offers us an opportunity to create a voice by telling our story. And I think it's so lovely that you embrace that too. And again, I don't say it to everyone. Sometimes I love practicing because I feel like it's a practice, because I do still sometimes get those jitters when I know someone's going to ask me if I'm a mom. I've been practicing just saying no sometimes and pausing, and just, you know, if the conversation becomes something else, it does. But if not, it allows me to just take power in knowing that I answered genuinely to me, instead of, you know, something that just feels like I'm comforting somebody else instead of comforting me first.
Yeah, I think no is so powerful. If it makes that person feel awkward, well, they asked a question that made you feel awkward. So who's in the right, who's in the wrong? And it is so often so easy to just give an answer that lets them off the hook. But sometimes you just think, oh, I might be a bit cheeky today and say no and put them on the hook and see how they get out of it. Do you know what I mean? And how the conversation could possibly change. But I've had conversations with a woman on a train once. We ended up sitting together for 2 hours talking about that you're so lucky to not have kids, because she said it to me. And by the end of the conversation, she was fantastic and she took everything on board. She said, yeah, I'm going away with a different insight. I've had a conversation with a taxi driver once when he asked where I was going, and I was going to Fertility Fest. And he actually asked about it, questioned me, and he actually says, my daughter's struggling to conceive. He said, so I'll keep what you've told me in the back of my head. So if there comes a time she needs it, I can be there and offer it to her. So you never know who you're connecting to. And, you know, it is amazing when you find that confidence to actually say something. The actual reach you can have, it can be way bigger than you ever expect it to be. But it's always putting up your own protection first. I agree with that. Interesting. So who's the next question? Should we have a look? So the next one I have is for Carrie. Grief. How we are influenced by lack of positive representation, acceptance, and that you can still be childless and live a life that is meaningful, purposeful, and fun. So where do you find your purpose?
Yeah. Well, I think it evolves all the time. You know, I think what I think my purpose is one week sometimes changes the next week. I try, you know, similar to your concept of plan B, I try not to put so much like weight on like, okay, I'm not a mom, so now I got to have this huge purpose. But I think right now, going along with what we were just talking about, is trying to share my story and hear other people's stories. Because as we've just said, most of the time when I say no, I don't have kids, and it leads to a conversation, somebody tells me something that like they know somebody or they themselves experience something related to this, or someone in their family is. And it's just that thing that we don't talk about. And so I think, like right now, my purpose is trying to share this experience. And I know the grief that I went through for multiple years, where I was like, what is the point now? You know, I could not think of, well, what's older age going to look like? What's 40s and 50s going to look like? How am I going to spend my time? I mean, I had nothing, there was no recipe or no like roadmap for me to follow. And I find purpose in living my life in a way that if someone's looking around, they might be like, oh, her life looks pretty cool. It's not the life I have. I think, sorry, I'm meandering a little bit, but I think sometimes I used to feel this all the time that like people pitied me. Um, and that isn't the purpose I want to take on. So I'm out there trying to show a different way.
I like the fact that you said sometimes it's just having fun. It's finding joy. I think in the smallest of things can be enough to give us purpose sometimes. Because
Yeah.
our life doesn't have to be this big, amazing thing that's in flashing lights in front of everybody. It can just literally be finding something that gives you joy or makes you smile every day.
I think
Absolutely.
sometimes it's over. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Carrie.
No, I was just saying, yeah, absolutely. And I think this path of childlessness led me to that concept. I think if I weren't childless, I would be driving to hit goals, like that determination, like it would be about, okay, what's the next milestone? What's the next step? What's the next step? And because that's what I was doing before. And then, a brick hits you and slows you down and completely changed my mindset around that.
It's interesting you said you were striving to hit goals before, but that was perhaps when you were childless, but you still thought you'd be a mum. And now we almost feel like you said we need a purpose when in reality we don't. We're doing it step by step. But I wonder if it's like when you become a parent, you see your purpose as being a parent, and so you lose the opportunity to have that freedom. So we've got that freedom. We don't maybe appreciate it at the beginning, and we find it hard to appreciate because we still wish to have been a parent. But we do have that freedom to not worry about hitting goals and to actually let life just relax a little bit and let it happen. Like you said, we've all been sort of saying, you can't always plan it. You can just sit back and let it happen, or you can guide it and see where it goes, but don't necessarily force yourself into having an end destination. Anybody else?
I was going to add something. Yeah. Oh, sorry, Lana.
I was just going to add in that I think when we believe that we have one blanket purpose for our whole life, it feels really heavy to find that thing that feels meaningful to us. But we have different purposes to different people. I talk about this a lot in my community. I think about my second grade teacher, who's, in my eyes, she taught me arithmetic. And what an amazing purpose I took away from being a second grader. And she was probably a mom. There's people I work with in my corporate life who are moms, but in my daily life, they create such a different purpose for me. And I think it becomes very overwhelming when we believe that we have to live our whole life with this name tag. Hi, I'm Lana, and my purpose is being a mom. And when we just let go of that and say, like, I could just be me, and by waking up each day and living true to who I am, I'm creating purpose by just being the genuine person that I am. So I just wanted to add that as well.
Yeah, I love actually, Lana, how you looked at that from the perspective of being on the receiving end of somebody's purpose. And I think you're right. Our purpose sometimes changes depending on who's in front of us, but it also doesn't have to be like we hear so much around finding a purpose or finding our purpose. And I don't even know if there's definitely not like a one purpose, because the way that we find meaning, which I think is another way of sort of saying purpose, is different from day to day. And you can find meaning in, it doesn't have to be a career, or there doesn't have to be a purpose. It can be just a way of being. And it can be just to be a kind person. It can be and it can change depending on who's in front of you. I think it's just bringing the light. doesn't have to be a big thing.
And can change with interests, and kind of what you are finding and with what you're enjoying right now. This whole idea of purpose is something that I've been like reflecting on just in my own life, because and really kind of, to everyone's point, trying to think about it in terms of, this is fluid, this changes, and it doesn't, I'm not on this I'm not a mom, so now I gotta like find this other thing that makes my life just as meaningful if I were a mom, kind of thing, like trading that. And I don't buy into that anymore. And I think I did. And it really was a large part of the grieving process, because that's a lot of pressure, right?
It's almost like I'm thinking of a kid's toy now, where they've got like a circle, but it's got different holes in it, and each hole is a different shape, whether it's a square, a circle, or a star.
Yeah.
And in a way, we're lucky because we don't have to fit in one of them. We can just jump around and choose the ones we want to fit into when we want to. Do you know what I mean? And like you say, that's good. And also, what you've also said is that, like, we've got a different purpose maybe with different people. How we interact with different people might be different. It might be the teacher. It might be caring for a parent. It might be something. Do you know what I mean? So there's lots of different slots we can fit into, and lots of different roles that we actually are part of in other people's lives. But I think that,
and
yeah,
to add on to that stuff, parents also have many other purposes. Like having a child is not a purpose. Having children may bring meaning to someone's life, but there's lots of things that also bring meaning to a parent's life as well. And in the same way that it does for us, like you said, like caring for an aging parent, or whatever, being, somebody needs your help who's standing right in front of you. So it's the same for all of us. Having a child is not a purpose. It's something that you can find meaning in. There's so many other ways to find meaning in your life.
Yeah, I think we're multi-dimensional people. Go figure. Right. And I think all people, but I think women get pegged in this mom or not, wife or not, right? It's so boring.
Yeah, multi-dimensional, like you say, multifaceted. We've all got that option, and we can get stuck under the label of childless, child-free parent. And it's sort of breaking free and saying, no, I'm this, I'm that, I'm the other, I'm a list of all sorts of things. And each one of them is amazing and wonderful and makes me who I am.
Yeah. And what a relief that we could be us, and people can take the parts of who we naturally are, and we're creating purpose without even really feeling like it has to be like this heavy lift. And it makes life so much easier when you realize that being who you believe you feel good being is like multifaceted, and just, you're not constantly waiting to see if somebody is believing that your purpose is in alignment with what you believe it is, but you could just continue to radiate so much more to other people by them taking the beautiful parts of you that exist by you being humanly you.
We don't always see it, do we? Sometimes it takes somebody else to tell us.
Yeah. And it's like, you want someone to be like, hey, like, I think you're awesome because, but if we never hear that, then we live in this false understanding that we're just sort of checking off the days on the calendar, like we used to do, like put the X through the day, like, okay, no one told me I had a purpose today, so I'm going to try again tomorrow.
Yeah. But maybe our purpose was sit back, put the feet up, put a telly on, watch a film. And that was the purpose for today. So it doesn't, like you say, it could be all sorts and everything. And it doesn't have to be about other people. It can just be about ourselves. Yeah. So we've done about purpose, haven't we? I'm trying to think now, where do we get to? So Lana, you actually said, so much has changed in my life. I am still childless, but never felt more purposeful. So we've come back to that again, and fulfilled as I do today. So question now is, what makes you feel fulfilled?
Well, I think it's feeling at ease with my journey. I used to argue a lot that it didn't go the way it was supposed to, or I'd find reasons to think like, did I do something wrong in my past that I'm being punished for not being able to become a mom? And I struggled a lot for justifying why my life didn't happen the way I thought it was supposed to. And I think that caused a lot of inability for me to really feel as though I was fulfilled, or, you heard my thoughts on the purpose part. And I say this, and a lot of people like scratch their head, maybe because, their journey isn't where mine is at this moment. But I would go through all the heartache and the IVF and the canceled cycles and the various things that I went through during my fertility treatment to know that I could get to this point in my life where I feel so at ease with who I've become. Because had I not gone through that journey, I don't think my life would be as full as it is today. I thought that being a mom would create that fullness for me, or I thought going shopping and buying a new handbag would give me happiness. Like I was always looking outside of my life to create something, this feeling of fulfillment or this feeling of joy or happiness. And when I realized that I could have that by being in love with who I am, and infertile and failed cycle and failed fertility patient, like all these terms, like to be able to look at those words on a paper and believe that they don't have to define me, I believe that's what really has created the fulfillment in my life.
I think it gives a lot of, for me anyway, give me an extra almost energy, an injection into life. Yes, it was it's left, like any experience in life, and it's left a mark on you, but for me, it's given me a reinvigoration to life, because you almost appreciate, for me, my life was on hold for like 5 years, and you're just like, come on. And meanwhile, I can see my husband progressing up his career and all these things, and I'm just like, I can't do anything. I'm stuck. And then when that journey came to a close, and said you've done the grieving, it gave me that new joy and drive almost to say, oh, I can do things now. I've got that freedom. And yeah, be who you want to be and do those things. And I volunteered community groups and said I travel around the world, all sorts of things, and you can do that. So it's finding that purpose, I think.
Something you said made me also, it reminded me of something that I talk a lot about, Lana, and that was I think finally coming to the realization that I was going to remain childless was a catalyst for me for finding the healing, for finding joy, for finding fulfillment. I like you, I would not be living the life that I am today. I wouldn't be the person that I am today. My journey catalyzed a level of growth that I didn't even know was possible. And that to me is fulfilling. I find fulfillment in everything I do now. And I think it sounds like you do as well. It's not about finding a fulfilling thing or finding this thing that's going to complete you or fulfill you. It's who you became that leads to fulfillment.
Yes. And I think we get so one-tracked, like siloed into thinking that the only way as women we could have purpose and meaning is by producing a child or mothering a child. And that's why I think I had so much, I told you earlier how I'm working on how I respond to people asking me if I had kids. And a lot of it was, I knew that the next thing that they were going to tell me is, you can always adopt, or they would give me their ideas of what I should try to become a mom. And I used to really judge myself that, gosh, like these people don't think I wanted it bad enough, or these people don't think that I tried hard enough. And I would always feel like I was missing something, or that I had to justify my existence. And when I realized that I tried enough for me, and what I tried for me might not be as much as someone else who's watching this webinar tried, but whatever they tried was enough for them. And I think when we stop expecting others to create this, like, oh, well, this appreciation for what we tried, and that it was worthy enough of us saying no to adoption or no to an egg donor, the things that I said no to and judged myself for, when I realized that I could just be proud of who I was, no matter where I ended my journey and how much I tried, that's where I really felt like I could start to be fulfilled again.
Yeah, I feel like if I had children, I would be on a conveyor belt, just living a life that I'm not purposely making decisions about. I'm just doing it because that's what you're supposed to do. And that is like, no one like tells you that. Sometimes they do, but it's just in the air, right? And I think if on my good days, when I kind of flip the script in my head, I can remind myself that I have this opportunity now to make these intentional decisions about what my life looks like. And I know that the wave can come, and anything that I plan is up for grabs, and I'll get through that too, right? Because now I'm not just following mindlessly. Like, I think somebody on here said, and it was an injection of something, and I relate to that. I feel like this, like there's a light that turned on, and I sure as heck did not expect it to turn on through this process.
Mm-hmm.
You also mentioned having, bad days. I can't remember if you said good days or bad days. And I think there's also this conception that when you get to the point where one of us who happens to be on the panel, that we're happy all the time. Like, there's oftentimes I look at a mother and a child have this connection moment and tears come to my eyes. I can get emotional thinking about it right now. And that doesn't mean that I don't feel those desires for connection and the things that I thought motherhood was going to bring me. But I'm also able to realize that I'm still proud of me and who I show up being every day, even though those things aren't part of my journey. So I want those of you that are listening in to know, like, there's going to be bad days. And that doesn't mean that you're behind the 8 ball or that you're never going to feel better. Like, we all have those days. I think, I don't want to speak for everyone, but, there's human aspects to this life that there's going to be things that we just aren't going to have an attachment or availability to, bring into us. And I felt like I need you to know that you can have sad days and still be growing and still be doing your best work and showing up as you every day.
Really good.
I think what you're
I'm glad you brought that up. Do you know what I mean? But yeah, carry on, Sherry.
I want to say 2 things, but Len, I think what you're really talking about is it's standing in your power. It's really kind of finding your true self instead of what society expects you to be. We're left because we don't have that ability to be what society thinks we're supposed to be. We're left with finding what our true self is and what our true identity is and what our true self wants to be. The other thing, I was just one of the comments popped up and I'm just looking at it and wanted to address it because it relates to people who have disabilities. And I wanted to just mention that because it's actually part of my story. And I'm not totally sure what the person meant by this isn't going to be fully relatable or as opportunistic when coming from a different culture, living or someone who has disabilities. But my husband has a disability. He had a spinal cord injury. He uses a wheelchair. And he lives a very purposeful, meaningful life as well. As a couple, we've needed to move through that and create a life that we love. And it is possible. And maybe I'm saying that because we've been maybe we've been privileged in some ways, but in the same way that I've had to live through something really tough, he has as well. And we've both been able to, we do things that I never thought we would do as a couple. We spend winters in the South and work from home or work remotely from wherever we are. And we travel and we do all these things that I never expected to be able to do with someone who has a disability. And he also lives a very meaningful, purposeful life. So I want for the people who may be related to that comment that it's maybe not as doable if you have a disability. Of course that depends on your disability, but my husband he's paralyzed. He's a really difficult time in a lot of ways, but it's totally possible.
So we've all got challenges, haven't we? So many different challenges.
Mm-hmm.
And it's trying to still find a way through them and find the purpose, find the fulfillment and everything else that we're talking about tonight. And it's recognizing that, and again, saying our challenges might be different. I'm the one who has to deal with it. I'm the one who therefore needs to work on the grief, my comfort zone, and everything else that we've sort of discussed tonight in finding a sort of way through it. Yeah, it's a tough one. Gosh, I can't believe how quick the time is going. I've got one more question because we were meant to have another lady joining us tonight. Unfortunately, she's got COVID, but the question I have based on hers, she's actually said, the realization that I'd be child-free following infertility truly changed my life. As part of that change, I've advocated for childless adults and showing we are worthy through competing and spreading the message through the Mrs. America pageant. In the past, I have led a volunteer hours drive among the childless, which raised over 200 hours of service, showcasing that childless adults have many gifts to share. So for all of you, I'd like to say, can you share some of the gifts that you feel you have or that others around you in the community have that they've possibly shared with you? Silence.
I always feel annoying being the first one to answer. So
You're fine.
I think of my gift of telling my story is really like a gift that I offer. And I started a podcast, not even knowing how to create one, but because somebody told me like people need to hear your story. And so for me to be able to share something that at so many ways in my life was so confining and so painful for me, to be able to openly talk about them, to allow other women to hear their story from somebody else that they don't even know. Like, to me, that's a huge offering that I think by telling my story. And then also I volunteer with a nonprofit. My family's originally from a country in Europe, and there's a lot of poverty in that country. And so I go on mission trips with family and friends, and we help to rebuild the orphanages. We help build out soup kitchens, things that we have an infrastructure here in the US that a lot of people in these countries just don't know what that looks like. And so being able to volunteer my time and create a life that's better and help these children become active in society and help these folks that are undernourished and impoverished to be able to have a healthy, full meal a couple of times a week, to me, that's an opportunity for me as well.
Yeah, that's amazing. Do you know what I mean? And like you say, again, we're sort of reflecting and saying, that's amazing, that's big, and it's panicky. But it's like, for me, sometimes it's like I sit at my computer desk, I type a message on here that might give one person a bit of validity and support for that day. So my gift is I'm open, I'm honest, and I'm prepared to put myself out here and speak my truth, which might not always be right, might not resonate with everybody, but if it can resonate with one or two and help one or two get through that moment or the day, or possibly uplift or change the thought pattern, then that's a gift. So there's so many different, like you say, ways we can help. Anybody else got something they'd like to?
Mine's quite, I think, quite simple. It's just within my community, it's just people kind of comment on my optimism and just my enthusiasm for life and how I grab things. And I've had people say, you know, I'm going through IVF at the moment, and if even it doesn't work out, I see from you it's going to be okay. And I think just that, you said, enthusiasm and optimism to life, and how I'm just try my best and just grab opportunities and enjoy myself, and I just show people there is life after this journey.
I think you know what I mean, like being positive and enthusiastic and supporting people that way. It's an amazing thing to do, and something we can all do within the communities that we're in. I would say often in a group, you know what I mean, if you see a post and you don't quite know what's right, or you don't quite relate to the person, you just do a care emoji. You just send hugs, and it's the simple things like that are really powerful to the person who's receiving them. I know how much it meant to me when people just liked or sent love to a post where I was in my deepest grief and feeling alone, because we all feel alone, and just knowing people were there. So yeah, that's a wonderful thing to give.
Yeah, I think what I hope the gift that I'm giving is for people to feel seen in this shared experience that we have. You know, and I think the gift that I receive, you know, like we talked about, is being able to hear everybody's stories and getting off that conveyor belt of just living this life and having the opportunity for intentionality. And there are good days and bad days with all of that.
But it's a gift to recognize that and accept it, isn't it? Like I say, acceptance isn't about accepting that you'll be childless. It's just accepting this is your life, and it's not always good. It's not what you wanted, but I accept it's where I am, and I will live it, and I will deal with it, and I will embrace what I've got and go forward with it. And perhaps embrace isn't the right word. I know some people don't like that, but it's dealing with the moment again. Yeah. Sherry, something else you'd like to add?
Yeah, I think this path has caused me to sort of develop something that I don't think I knew how to do before, and that was holding space for people to share their grief, their whatever their emotions, whatever it is they're feeling. And I was certainly one of those people, and I think our society has been conditioned to do this, to fix or to find the silver lining. We're so, you know, it doesn't matter when you talk about a problem with someone, their first reaction is, oh, have you tried this? Or, well, at least blah, blah, blah. There's always a silver lining or fix. And it's been a practice, but I think what I bring to my community is an ability to just hold space and allow them to express what they need to express without trying to jump in and fix and or whatever it is. And whether that's in my community or my coaching practice or on my podcast, it's, you know, sometimes it's bringing a guest on and hearing what they have to say without immediately stating my opinion, or it's holding space for people to express themselves too.
I love how we see different things, and like I say, the gifts, like I say, from the smallest of things to the bigger things, and it's everything in between. So like what you expressed to us, Lana, that was like, wow, that's impressive stuff. But then it's just the hugs as well, and then it could be something else, like, you know, doing the pageantry and sharing the word that way. But whatever it is, it's a spark within us, and it's helping other people. And I think that's a real gift to give. And maybe that's enough to be our plan B. It's just that little spark that we give to other people, that glimmer of hope, or that place to say their story, or just to be heard or loved, validated. So we don't need that. For me, I don't think we need a plan B. I think we just need to exist and live, be in the moment, enjoy the happiness, accept that there is sadness, and know that it's all part of it. I think what you've all said tonight has been amazing. Does anybody have any last words of wisdom or thanks or gratitude or anything they would like to express to the people who are with us now for them to go home with?
I think just to realize that you're not alone. I mean, I don't know the number of participants if I can see it here, but I believe there was like over 70 some participants.
Yeah.
And I think we often think that we're the only ones who are going through this. So just to know that there's women out there who want to connect and probably would love to hear from someone like you, and just know that there's a listening ear.
Very good. Anyone else? We've already covered so much tonight anyway. I think it's been enlightening, and I hope that the people who are watching have found something from the words from one of us or all of us. As long as something resonates and they can take away a positive from the night, then we've done our job. We've done our good thing, our good deed for today. We've shown our reason for being here. So I want to thank you all, Sherry, Carrie, Becky, and Lana. Thank you all so very, very much for joining me tonight for this last webinar for this year. And to everybody who's in the audience. And I wish you well, and I wish you love and happiness going forward.